Hey guys, tonight we're headed into the moonlit back alleys of ancient Rome, where whispers chase shadows and someone has just misplaced the most important cheese recipe in the entire empire. Picture this: smooth cobblestones cool under your feet, the soft clank of amphorae being loaded onto carts, and the tangy scent of goat's milk drifting through the night air. Something's not right tonight. A merchant's voice trembles. A senator's face tightens. You're watching history hold its breath over a foodstuff that's somehow gotten dangerously lost. You probably won't survive this story without getting a little hungry, slightly confused, and fully convinced that dairy can in fact destabilize an empire. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your city and what time you're listening. Let's see how far this story travels tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You walk slowly past a cart of overripe figs and dried dates, pretending not to eavesdrop as two men in cloaks murmur urgently over a scroll. One flicks his hand toward a nearby food stall, where a small sign reads "Lactarianum, sold out." His voice rises just enough for you to catch a few words: gone, recipe, disaster. You slow your steps. A third man joins them, smelling faintly of basil and panic. "If it's truly lost," he says, "we're all," and then he sees you watching and clams up. But it's too late. The air is thick with fear and cheese. Lactarianum. That's the one. A rich, semi-soft delicacy rumored to blend goat's milk, honey, and a now-forgotten blend of spices. Not just food, status. A wheel of it once gifted from emperor to emperor. Notoriously hard to make. Incredibly easy to ruin. And now, somehow, gone. You duck into the shadow of a pillar and listen. The whispers stretch beyond this group. One vendor's quietly closing his shop. Another's hiding what little cheese he has left beneath folds of cloth. You spot a rat nibbling on a chunk someone's dropped, but even the rat seems hesitant. A week ago, this market bustled with the scent of toasted barley and roasting pork. Now, there's an undercurrent of dread. Like everyone's bracing for something, not war exactly, but a storm of confusion. And all over cheese? Historians still argue whether the recipe's disappearance was an accident or an act of sabotage. One theory holds that a rival province destroyed the last copy during a trade dispute. Another suggests it was never written down at all, transmitted by whisper and muscle memory from chef to chef like some culinary gospel. Either way, its absence is starting to pull at the seams of the city. You pass a young boy standing beside a chipped marble fountain, tears streaking down his face. "My father says we can't afford bread anymore," he mutters. "All because the cheese men won't sell." A woman near him slaps a wheel of something suspiciously rubbery onto a cart and mutters, "This isn't real Lactarianum." But maybe they won't notice. The panic's not just economic, it's social. The elite of Rome don't merely eat cheese. They brag about it, gift it, even include it in marriage contracts. One senator, it's whispered, demanded a dowry of 3 wheels per year, or the deal was off. And yet, the original makers? Vanished or silent. Some say they've gone into hiding. Others think they were bribed into exclusivity by a very rich, very paranoid nobleman with a thing for rare condiments. You're starting to believe anything's possible. As you cross into the wealthier quarter, the change is striking. Torches burn brighter. Guards patrol with tighter formations. You overhear one mutter to another, "If word spreads, the emperor's going to lose his mind." Again. His friend nods. And that's not even counting what happened to the baker who tried to make a version using mare's milk. A side alley catches your eye. Narrow, vine-covered, oddly quiet. You slip into it and follow the soft hum of bees. The scent changes here, more fermented, deeper. You push open a crooked door at the end and step into a room glowing with golden candlelight. A woman stands behind a low table, her hands gently pressing a cheesecloth bundle. She looks up, doesn't speak, just nods to a small stool. You sit. "This isn't it," she says softly. "But it's close." You look down. A slice of cheese on a clay plate. It smells complex, earthy, sweet. There's a note of something else, too. Not quite spice. Not quite rot. Your stomach growls. She shrugs. "Even this took months. And I'm still guessing. No one knows what the Tyrian blend really was. My teacher said it came to him in a dream." She snorts. "More likely from a drunken night with a Carthaginian spice merchant." You try a bite. It's good, really good, but even you, a wandering cheese novice, can tell, this isn't the one. The woman sees it in your face. Try the forum, she says, already turning away. Someone there claims to have a scroll. But if they do, they won't part with it cheaply. As you step back into the night, you realize what this is. Not just a missing dish. It's a ghost story in the making. One that haunts palaces and pantries alike. And if it's not found soon, Rome might just start to unravel. You head toward the forum, past shuttered bakeries and flickering torches, your sandals tapping against the stone with a kind of anxious rhythm. Rome doesn't usually sleep early, but tonight, even the dice players have gone home. You pass a trio of merchants huddled under a silk awning, arguing in hushed tones. One waves a worn scrap of parchment, swearing it holds the real recipe. The other two laugh, bitter, weary. That's a list of goat names, Publius, one says. And one of them's crossed out. The trail winds deeper into memory, down through kitchens where history simmers just under the surface. You slip past a lazy guard and duck beneath a colonnade that leads into the private kitchens once overseen by Marcus Gavius Apicius, the most decadent gourmet the empire ever birthed. His old villa stands like a forgotten jewel box, tucked away behind state buildings and half-buried fountains. Some say he invented Lactarianum. Others think he just took credit. The place smells of olives and old time. You tiptoe through cracked tiles into a room where the walls still display faded frescoes of glistening meats and smiling boars. Someone really liked their feasts. But it's the work table that draws you. Gouged wood, burn marks, and dozens of little clay pots labeled in smudged ink, Muria, Defrutum, Silphium. You run your fingers over a deep groove in the counter. Looks like a knife was stabbed there. Repeatedly. You imagine a chef losing their mind mid-service, shouting about proportions and goat temperament. Apicius, it's said, once spent a fortune trying to perfect a fish sauce, and then took his own life when he feared he couldn't afford luxury anymore. You wouldn't put it past him to hide a recipe out of sheer spite. A rustling sound, someone else is here. You duck behind a hanging curtain and spot a scrawny man kneeling over a jar, his nose practically inside it. His robe is stained, his hands coated in curds and grease. No. Too much honey, he mutters. Then he sniffs again. Or not enough. You recognize him. Tullius, a culinary archivist and obsessive. The kind of man who believes food is proof of the god's existence. You clear your throat. He jumps so hard he nearly flings the jar. I'm not stealing, he says immediately. I'm preserving, researching, recreating. It's for the good of Rome. You tell him about the missing cheese. He snorts. Missing? Huh. It's hiding. There's a difference. He waves you over and points to a cracked mosaic on the wall. A goat stands atop a hill, bleeding at a crescent moon. That, he says, is the clue. The Tyrian blend was always made at night. Always when the moon was waxing. Something to do with the enzymes in the milk. Or the spice fermentation. No one agrees. Historians still argue whether the moon mattered for practical reasons, like cooler temperatures for setting the curd, or if it was just a ritualistic superstition. Either way, the original recipe supposedly changed depending on celestial phases. And this? This goat mosaic? It's probably been ignored for centuries. Or worshipped by cheese cultists. It's hard to tell in Rome. Tullius digs into a stack of scrolls, mumbling as he tosses them. Listen to this, to the curd, add not the honey before the smoke. What does that mean? Smoke from where? Fire? Incense? A burnt offering? He laughs maniacally. Or maybe just a badly worded metaphor. You ask him if he's come close to replicating it. His smile fades. I thought I had it once. The texture was perfect. The scent, like ambrosia. But when I served it to the local magistrate, he got hives. Swelled up like a puff pastry and accused me of assassination. He pulls a tiny vial from his pocket. Inside, a deep amber paste glistens. This, he whispers, is all I have left. The essence. The base note. The ghost of the original. He hands it to you solemnly. Guard it. And if you find someone who knows the rest, don't eat it all at once. You tuck the vial into your satchel. It feels oddly heavy. Warm, even. You're not sure if that's a good thing. Back on the street, the wind picks up, scattering leaves and the scent of burn time. Someone sneezes in the distance. You pause to watch a group of servants dump a bucket of spoiled cheese into the gutter, muttering curses. One says, "That was 50 denarii down the drain." Another replies, "Could have been worse. Could have been served to the emperor." Because here's the thing, word has it Emperor Tiberius was served an imitation lactarianum last week, and nearly threw a ladle at the head chef. The man was spared only because he fainted before the spoon hit him. Now Tiberius is on edge. And an edgy emperor is a dangerous emperor. You reach the edge of the forum. Even at this hour, torches burn. A handful of scribes mumble to themselves near a marble statue of Minerva. Two of them hold a large scroll between them, clearly copying it word for word. You lean in. The title at the top reads, De Lactariano, Fragmenta. Your breath catches. But just as you reach out, a guard approaches. The scribes snap the scroll shut. Private commission, one says. Imperial decree. The guard gives you a long look. Move along. You do, but you double back behind a pillar, ears sharp. The scribes are arguing. We can't just guess on the fermentation time, one hisses. Do you want another Tiberian tantrum? The other sighs. What if we use mare's milk again? The first replies, I like my job, thanks. As you slink away, a cart rumbles past, its wheels creaking under the weight of sealed clay pots. You catch a glimpse inside one, and see a cheese wheel stamped with a strange sigil, a crescent moon, and a goat. You might be closer than you think. You trail the creaking cart through the forum shadows, careful to keep your footsteps soft. The driver hums an off-key tune as the wheels jostle and clunk over uneven stone. You count 6 large clay pots under the canvas tarp, all sealed, all stamped with that now familiar crescent and goat sigil. You wonder if he even knows what he's carrying, or if someone paid him handsomely to not ask. The cart pulls around the back of a grand columned building, the kind where senators usually debate olive tariffs and marriage laws, and disappears through a set of iron gates. You hesitate. This part of Rome doesn't appreciate surprise guests, especially ones lurking in sandals. But curiosity and cheese panic are louder than common sense. So you slip in behind a delivery boy with a basket of herbs, mumble something about time for the consul's digestion, and blend into the scent of rosemary and sweat. Inside, the air shifts. You've entered a domed chamber lined with marble benches and mosaics of mythical beasts devouring what appears to be cheese. One dragon looks positively smug. In the center, a circle of stern-faced senators sit around a long table, which, for all its political importance, is currently covered in cheese samples. You're just in time. Gentlemen, one statesman booms, slapping the table, this, he points at a pale, trembling wedge, is not lactarianum. It is a crime against digestion, and I will not be made to taste it again. Several heads nod. One man is dabbing tears from his eyes, either from spice or shame. Another stands, arms crossed. We are not cheese testers, we are lawmakers. And yet here we are, evaluating curds like philosophers arguing over the soul. A third senator clears his throat and unrolls a scroll. We must consider regulation. If the real recipe is lost, we must control the fakes. I propose a Dairy Standardization Act. Only certified cheeses allowed in official banquets, trade routes, and religious offerings. The room explodes in murmurs. You hear the word cheese lord tossed out like an insult. One man slams his fist on the table and yells, "This is tyranny in curd form." And it only gets better. From a side entrance, a servant appears, holding a small, ornate box. He opens it carefully to reveal what looks like a perfect will of the famous cheese, golden crust, honeyed sheen, and a delicate vine ash swirl. Everyone freezes. It was just delivered, the servant says. No note. No courier. The senators crowd around. One slices off a sliver with a ceremonial knife. Sniffs. Bites. Silence. Then, this is close. Not exact. Not divine. But close enough to cause panic. Because if someone out there has come this close without their approval, what does that mean for control? For price? For status? Historians still argue whether this mystery wheel was a prank, a bribe, or a fragment of the real deal smuggled out by a disgruntled kitchen slave. But the consequences were very real. You linger in the corner, pretending to admire a bust of Jupiter as the senators argue. We should nationalize production, one growls. Create state-run dairies. Another gasps like he's been stabbed. You trust the state with cheese? Then someone drops the real bombshell. There are rumors, he says, lowering his voice, that provinces are stockpiling milk. Hoarding rennet. even diverting trade caravans to get more cumin and silphium. That hits harder than the moldiest blue. Because cheese, you realize, isn't just food here. It's politics, economics, even diplomacy. Provinces have bartered with it. Debts have been paid in wheels. It was once a tax alternative for minor nobles. Lose the original recipe, and you don't just lose flavor, you lose leverage. The senator continues, if Tyrian-style cheese can't be proven genuine, then anyone can claim it. Barbarians could call their curd imperial, and we'd have no defense. Someone gasps. Cheese fraud. You feel the tension spiral. They're not afraid of hunger. They're afraid of humiliation. Of imposter cheese being served to foreign dignitaries. Of losing face at banquets. Of having to admit Rome doesn't know what Rome made. Then the door opens again. And this time, it's the emperor's food taster. He's pale. Thin. You suspect he hasn't smiled since Augustus. He places a scroll on the table, stamped with the imperial seal. A senator opens it and reads aloud, by decree of Tiberius, any further imitation of lactarianum deemed substandard shall be considered culinary treason. Offenders to be fined, publicly denounced, and barred from future food service. Murmurs break into outrage. One senator groans, we're weaponizing cheese. Another hisses, what if my cook guesses right and it still tastes wrong? You duck out before the shouting really starts. But the tension follows you into the street. You spot the cheese cart again, now being pulled back toward the palace. The driver looks nervous. No more humming. You're pretty sure he's realizing what's in those pots could get him flayed, or knighted. The panic is no longer just culinary. It's institutional. Everyone's grasping at taste memories, childhood flavors, nostalgic bites that might not have ever truly existed. And yet, they all agree, the real thing is gone. What's left is theater. Anxious guesses. Political performance served with garnish. You make your way back down a side road, passing two scribes scribbling furiously outside a cafe. Just right hint a fig, one says. Everyone likes figure, the other sighs. But we don't know if it had figure. A cart selling bland, sad cheese slices passes by, its vendor calling, better than nothing. Maybe the real thing, maybe not. You turn the corner and see a line outside a small shop. People waiting, murmuring. A painted sign above the door reads, the last slice. You step closer. Someone in line whispers, they say he trained under Apicius. Knows at least part of the recipe. Another adds, if you get a slice, you have to swear silence. And somehow, despite yourself, your stomach growls again. You slide into the back of the line at the last slice, standing behind a woman who clutches a tiny basket of dried lavender like it's the only thing anchoring her to sanity. The man ahead of her is sweating through his toga, his eyes darting nervously toward the door as though expecting a bouncer to emerge and declare, only true Romans may dine. You're not sure what you'll say when you get in. You don't even know if you're here to eat or investigate. Maybe both. Maybe neither. Rome's weird like that sometimes. The door creaks open, letting out a whiff of roasted chestnut, yeast, and something tangy, maybe vinegar, maybe lemon peel. It's subtle, layered, the kind of smell that makes your mouth water while your brain fumbles to decode it. Inside, the space is no larger than a merchant's bedroom. Low lighting. Woven tapestries. One table. One man behind it. He's bald, frowning, and cutting paper-thin wedges of pale golden cheese with the care of someone performing heart surgery. He doesn't look up as the lavender lady steps forward, hands over 2 silver coins, and receives her ration. She smells it, shudders, then walks out without a word. When it's your turn, the man pauses. His eyes meet yours. First time, he says, voice dry as over-baked flatbread. You nod. No refunds. No exaggerations. No talking for 5 minutes after tasting. You hand over the vial Tullius gave you. His eyebrows rise, just slightly. He lifts it to his nose, sniffs, and lets out a low grunt. Where'd you get this? Apicius' old kitchen, you murmur. He snorts. Of course. That old drama pit. He waves the vial over the cheese like it's holy water, then slices you a piece so thin it curls at the edge. It rests on a cracked ceramic plate, next to a single mint leaf. You sit. He watches. You take a bite. The first sensation is sweet, but not cloying. Honeyed, yes, but mellow. Then salt creeps in, just enough to sharpen the flavor, followed by a creamy body that coats your mouth like silk dipped in herbs. There's something strange, too. Faint bitterness. A whisper of ash. And something floral, lavender? No, not quite. More exotic. Possibly extinct. You choose slowly, eyes closing involuntarily. For a moment, Rome fades. You hear waves. Seagulls. Maybe a goat bleating distantly, like an old friend. It's good. Very good. But not it. You open your eyes. The man's already nodding. You tasted the ghost, didn't you? You nod back. Close. But, off. He sighs, returns behind his table, and begins prepping another wedge for the next wide-eyed customer. I've tried for 20 years. Got a base from a scroll smuggled out of Alexandria. Hunted down a monk who remembered half a chant used to stir it. Still doesn't hold. You ask him what's missing. He shrugs. Could be the milk. Goats don't eat the same things they did back then. Could be the mold. The Tyrian cellars were dug deep. Humid. Full of secrets. And the spice? Don't get me started on the spice. He leans in. Some say it was silphium. Ah. That old story. Silphium. A mysterious, now extinct plant that was once used for everything from seasoning to contraception. Grown only in Cyrenaica, North Africa. Worth its weight in gold. Pliny the Elder wrote about it like a jilted lover. Then it vanished, overharvested, perhaps. Or hoarded by a secret sect of herbalists who now live in caves and eat nothing but marinated snail. Historians still argue whether silphium was ever truly part of Lactarianum or just a later obsession, part myth, part marketing. But if it was in the original, then every modern attempt is basically fan fiction. The man behind the counter shrugs again. Without silphium, we're fumbling in the dark. But people keep lining up. You ask him why he does it, knowing it's not the real thing. He pauses. Because people need to believe it's out there. That something perfect existed. Even if it was fleeting. He pulls a scroll from under the counter and passes it to you. The parchment is yellowed, cracked at the corners. There's a recipe on it, but half the ingredients are marked with question marks. One is just labeled moon resin. You ask where he got it. Came with a wheel. Wrapped like a gift. No note. No sender. I think someone's teasing us. You roll it up carefully, thank him, and step back into the street. The night air bites a little harder now. The crowd behind you buzzes, but it feels thinner. Like you've passed through a veil into another Rome. You think about what you just tasted. It was layered, complex, but ultimately incomplete. A symphony missing its final note. Up ahead, the forum has come alive again. But something's different. There are rumors flying faster than street pigeons. Word is, some merchants have started demanding cheese as payment instead of coin. Not just any cheese, Tyrian variants. Even bad ones. Anything that comes with the promise of prestige. One man shouts from a balcony, I'll trade a plot of land for a wedge that doesn't melt at room temperature. A woman below responds, you're describing a rock, not cheese. And just like that, the panic begins to twist into absurdity. A kind of performative chaos. Everyone desperate to seem in the know, even as they grasp at shadows. You pass a poster being tacked to a wall, Imperial Cheese Fair, Grand Arena, winner earns audience with the Emperor. Oh, that'll go well. By sunrise, word of the Emperor's Grand Cheese Fair has spread faster than gossip at a gladiator wake. You wake to the sound of drums and the clang of frying pans being repurposed as gongs. Rome is leaning all the way in. There are banners. There are jugglers. There is, somehow, a man dressed entirely in curd-colored silk handing out pamphlets that read one cheese to rule them all. You blend in with the growing crowd shuffling toward the arena, where a makeshift coliseum of wooden stands has been constructed overnight, classic Roman efficiency, when motivated by fear, pride, or dairy-based status. You hear a merchant yelling, try my Tyrianian treasure. Certified by my cousin's neighbor's goat. As you slip past a booth where someone's offering samples of what tastes suspiciously like shoe leather marinated in oregano, it hits you, no one actually knows what they're doing. This isn't a competition, it's a desperate, full-blown identity crisis in cheese form. Inside the arena, the atmosphere crackles with tension. A long marble table stretches across the field, where a panel of judges, including the Emperor's chief food taster, 2 senators, a particularly anxious priest of Ceres, and, inexplicably, an actor famous for playing Julius Caesar in a popular bathhouse drama, is already seated. Their expressions range from hopeful to deeply constipated. Contestants file in with carts, bowls, wrapped bundles, and at least one live goat wearing a laurel crown. You take a seat among the spectators, squeezed between a man chewing on a fennel root for luck and a woman sharpening a cheese knife like she's expecting a duel. The first sample is presented with flair, tiny portions on fig leaves, drizzled with date syrup. The crowd oohs. A senator tastes, chews, pauses, then hiccups violently. "It's interesting," he says. Translation: no. Next comes a dark, smoky wedge served on toasted barley. Too pungent. Another, too soft. Another, did someone put fish sauce in this? Yes. Yes, they did. You watch a man in a glittering tunic approach with trembling hands, presenting a pale cheese that smells faintly of cloves. He bows. "I studied with the monks of Bai," he says. This recipe came to one of them in a vision. Historians still argue whether the Bai monks were legitimate preservers of Roman culinary knowledge or simply excellent at branding. Their cheeses were revered, but also suspiciously similar to what you'd find at any roadside tavern, only with better wrapping. The monk's cheese is tasted. A long silence follows. The priest nods. "It's close," he says. The actor wipes a tear from his eye. "Takes me back," he whispers. But the food taster frowns. "It fades too fast." You know exactly what he means. The true lactarianum, if it ever existed in its purest form, was said to linger. A flavor that haunted your palate, refused to be forgotten. This one vanishes like a polite ghost. The contestant bows again and is handed a silver token, a sign of partial approval, apparently, but not the winner's seal. The crowd claps politely. No one riots. Yet, then a new figure enters the arena. Tall, hooded, silent. They say nothing as they place their offering, a single wedge, wrapped in waxed linen, stamped only with the crescent and goat sigil. The judges lean in. The taster cuts a piece, inhales, then hesitates. Something's changed. He eats it. Slowly. Methodically. His face goes slack. The actor gasps. The senator clutches the table. The priest mumbles a prayer that sounds more like a plea. The flavor is complex. Elusive. Familiar. Could this be it? The silence stretches. Then the taster leans forward and says, with quiet certainty, "This is as close as I have ever tasted." The crowd erupts. But the hooded figure? Already gone. Left the arena, disappeared into the chaos. Some say they saw her board a ship bound for Hispania. Others claim he was a ghost. Or a disgraced chef with a grudge. You're not sure what you saw. But you do know the fair is now in full frenzy. Imposters rush forward, claiming to have trained with the hooded one. People start buying up any cheese with a crescent logo, whether or not it tastes like anything but soap. One stand starts selling goat moon merch, linen tunics, miniature amphorae, even wax candles that smell like aged Tyrian rind. You're nearly trampled by a man waving a new scroll titled The 8 Signs of Real Cheese, including leaves a tingling on the left side of your tongue and makes you cry, but gently. Meanwhile, back near the palace, a quiet crisis is brewing. A warehouse filled with cheese reserves, cheaper, bulk varieties meant to feed the lower classes, has been raided. Not by thieves, but by desperate citizens trying to turn their bland curd into gold by stamping it with fake symbols and repackaging it with elaborate names like Lacto Majestica or Emperor's Drizzle. The guards are helpless. The Senate is in shambles. And Tiberius? Tiberius is furious. Rumor has it he personally threw a wedge across his private dining room, which unfortunately struck an ambassador's aide. Diplomats are now requesting cheese-free zones for meetings. You walk back toward the forum as the sun starts to dip again. The streets are littered with torn packaging, crushed wax seals, half-eaten samples left on steps and fountains. Pigeons peck at crumbs with deep suspicion. You sit on a bench and watch a group of children chase each other, laughing. One of them carries a tiny wool wrapped in cloth. "It's the real one," he shouts. Another yells back, "Liar. It's soft in the middle. That means it's cursed." You lean your head back and close your eyes. Somewhere between madness and nostalgia, Rome is spinning itself into curdled hysteria. And it's not even over yet. You wake to shouting. Not the cheerful kind, no. This is the urgent, street-scrambling, furniture-smashing kind of shouting that says Rome is not just panicking anymore. It's spiraling. You blink at the rising sun as you stumble out of the alley you fell asleep in. Cheese fairs are exhausting. Who knew? And into a full-blown merchant brawl. Two rival sellers are locked in a tug-of-war over a cart loaded with wheels labeled Genuine Tyrian Fusion. A third man jumps on top of it, shouting, "They're both frauds. I flavored mine with sacred cow pollen and dreams." You watch as a barrel of brined feta explodes in the background like some salty cannonball, splattering a passing scribe. The scribe just sighs and keeps walking. It's that kind of morning. As you wander through the chaos, something strange happens. A distinct scent drifts through the air. You know it now. That haunting blend of goat, honey, and mystery. You follow it. And just like that, you're riding in the back of a smuggler's cart, headed out of the city. You didn't plan this. But when a whispery voice offered you a spot in exchange for silence and a wink, you climbed aboard like it was the most natural thing in the world. The cart's covered in a heavy tarp. Inside, you and two other passengers crouch low among stacked crates, breathing in the unmistakable aroma of contraband cheese. One of the smugglers grins at you, all crooked teeth and confidence. "We're headed to Ostia. From there? Who knows? Maybe Alexandria. Maybe Gaul. Wherever people are desperate enough to pay for a dream." He lifts the corner of a crate lid, just enough for you to see. Inside? Wheels upon wheels. Some pale, some ash-rubbed, some carved with what looks like protective runes. One even has a dried flower embedded in the rind. "None of these are the real one," he says casually. "But they're close. And closed cells." You ask how he got them. He winks. "Let's just say I know a few monks who owe me favors. And I once dated a senator's niece who was very enthusiastic about cheese." Historians still argue whether smugglers like these were villains or heroes, parasites on a cultural crisis, or the only reason Rome's culinary identity didn't completely evaporate. Either way, they moved fast. And they moved wide. At a stop outside the city walls, a woman climbs in. She's wearing the dark cloak of a spice merchant, and her breath smells like cinnamon and secrets. She opens a pouch. "Coriander," she whispers. "And this," she lifts a tiny vial, "from a tree that only grows on Crete, under a full moon, on a west-facing slope." The smuggler snorts. "And what do I do with that? Rub it behind my ears?" She ignores him. Hands the vial to you. "You have the nose for it," she says. "Tell me what's missing." You uncap the vial and inhale. It's strong. Bitter, peppery, and something else, resinous, like pine had a love affair with citrus. It hits your palate just by scent alone, and you're certain it's part of the puzzle. The smuggler stares. "That's close." The merchant smiles. "It's what they used for the royal batch. Not the public one. Only the inner circle knew. I traded a Sumerian poem for that." You blink. "That's a lot of poem for a little liquid." She shrugs. "Culture's expensive." The cart keeps rolling. You pass other traders on the road, some selling knockoffs, some bartering spices, one guy just yelling, "I found the mold." You arrive in Ostia by nightfall. The port city is buzzing. Ships unloading amphorae of wine, sacks of grain, and now, cheese. Or cheese-like substances. One merchant boasts that his will has notes of justice and imperial confidence. Another just yells, "It doesn't explode." You slip away from the group and head down a narrow pier to clear your head. The sea air is sharp and cool, and for a moment, it cuts through the stench of sweaty carts and stale curd. Then you hear it. Voices. Down near a moored ship with no name. You sneak closer. It's a negotiation. 3 jars of silphium resin, says one voice. "And the recipe?" asks another. A pause. "No. Not yet. Just a fragment. The part about the second brining." The moon chant. You peer around the edge of the barrel. A tall figure hands over a scroll. The recipient holds it like it's a newborn child. You can't hear much else, but one word comes through, Byzantium. Ah. So that's the next phase. Because while Rome is eating itself from the inside out, the outer territories smell opportunity. You've seen this before, a panic in the core becomes a market on the fringe. The smugglers are already preparing ships. Some loaded with the best near misses they've got. Others packed with herbs, spices, even fake scrolls written in convincingly shaky Latin. You return to the cart, where the smuggler tosses you a wrapped wheel. "For your trouble," he says. You ask what it is. He shrugs. "Could be something. Could be a disaster. But it's edible." You cut a sliver. Smell first, close, but not perfect. Taste, sweet, salty, sour, and then a strange warmth, like a soft breeze at nightfall. Your heart jumps a little. It's very close. Closer than anything yet. But not quite. And you wonder, again, if anyone will ever find the real one. Or if the panic, the smuggling, the obsession, is what's truly preserved. You return to Rome to find the streets no less chaotic than when you left. If anything, the cheese fever has ripened, like a wheel left out too long in the summer sun. Except now, it has curdled into law. The first sign is a notice nailed to a public post. By order of the Senate, all commercial cheesemaking operations must be registered and inspected by imperial agents. Unauthorized Tyrian variants will be confiscated. Repeat offenders may face property seizure, or worse. You read it twice, and it still sounds like satire. As you pass the forum, a commotion draws your attention. A crowd has gathered around a raised platform where a senator, deep-voiced, red-faced, and practically foaming with self-importance, is ranting. "We are the guardians of Rome's identity," he bellows. "If we lose control of our recipes, we lose control of our culture." His toga is suspiciously stained around the hem. Cheese dribbles. You wouldn't bet against it. At his side stands a grim-faced official in black robes, part tax collector, part executioner, and now apparently, a dairy regulator. You nudge closer. A baker is being dragged forward. Middle-aged, apron dusted with flour and shame. He used dried melon rind as a substitute, the senator sneers, holding up a wax-sealed cheese wheel. Claimed it was Tyrian base. The crowd gasps. The baker protests. "I was experimenting. Trying to find a blend that wouldn't make children cry." Too late. The verdict's passed. His wheels will be destroyed, his stall temporarily shuttered, and his cheese knives publicly melted into a symbol of culinary atonement. You watch as a hammer-wielding assistant smashes the offending cheese into chunks. A child darts forward, grabs a piece, and darts away before anyone can stop him. You can't help but admire the hustle. Elsewhere, the crackdown has taken a weirder turn. You pass a fresco painter now offering cheese forgery consultation. For a modest fee, he'll inspect your wheel for authentic color strata and veining patterns. He squints at one hunk and declares, "This one lies." A nearby patrician woman hires a poet to name her cheeses so they sound fancier: moon curds of the upper Tiber, divine cradle rind, and the emperor's sweet lament. It works. She sells out before noon. You dip into a tavern for lunch, but even there, the panic simmers. At the next table, 3 legionaries argue over ration cheese. One swears he bribed a quartermaster for a wedge from a secret military stash. Another threatens to duel him over it, which would be ironic given the cheese in question looks more like a soap bar than sustenance. A tavern wench rolls her eyes. They're all eating donkey curd and don't even know it. But the senators? Oh, they're not done. That night, they meet under torchlight, and the proceedings are thick with self-righteous steam. They call it the lex lactis puritatis, the law of milk purity. According to them, it's a matter of civic pride. Only cheese is produced using approved sources, traditional methods, and morally upright fermentation will be allowed to bear the Tyrian name. One senator asks, "How do we define upright fermentation?" The room goes silent for a beat. Then someone mutters, "No one say left curdling spiral this time." You slip into the back row of the chamber and watch as they debate everything from brining times to goat diet. One even suggests measuring cheese's philosophical texture, which, according to him, is how well it pairs with Stoic texts. Historians still argue whether the lex lactis puritatis was serious law or performative overreach, designed to distract from more pressing issues like border skirmishes or famine. Either way, the vote passes. Rome now has official cheese purity laws. Soon, imperial agents flood the markets. Clad in official colors and armed with scrolls and scales, they descend on sellers like hawks. Wheels are sliced, sniffed, judged. Vendors are fined on the spot for excessive ash streaking, questionable bloom, or emotional manipulation through rind design. One elderly man is forced to burn an entire batch after a taster claims it smelled of provincial desperation. But the agents aren't just enforcers. They're also collectors. You see it yourself. A silver-robed official taste tests a wedge, nods approvingly, then tucks a slice into a velvet pouch labeled Potential Originals. They're building something. A master archive? A flavor library? A culinary armory? You follow one agent through the city, down into the marble belly of a villa now repurposed into a cheese vault. Inside, shelves of clay pots stretch to the ceiling. Each wheel numbered, sealed, catalogued. It's more secure than most temples. And for good reason. The stakes have changed. This isn't about finding the lost recipe anymore. It's about owning it. Whoever controls the closest version controls not just markets, but memory, nostalgia, and national identity. You brush past an agent holding a tiny wedge on a gold spoon. He whispers, "I think this one's it," and cradles it like a relic. You lean in. Smell. Taste. Your eyebrows lift. It's closer. So close your tongue tingles. Your pulse skips. But still, not quite. Because that missing ingredient, the real recipe's soul, still eludes them. And Rome, for all its power and precision, still can't cheat its way to authenticity. Not yet. You leave the cheese vault feeling like you've been inside a shrine, only instead of gods, it worships dairy, and instead of incense, it reeks of rind. Your tongue still tingles from that last almost there sample. It's haunting you now, lingering like a half-remembered melody you can't stop humming. You start walking, half-possessed, deeper into the city, past rows of bread sellers and pottery stalls, until the scent fades and you're left with only the ache of curiosity. And then you hear it. A chant. Low. Rhythmic. Carried on the wind. You follow it. Through a crooked archway, up a gravel path overgrown with ivy, and across a crumbling aqueduct. The city noise thins behind you, replaced by birdsong and the occasional moan of old stone adjusting in the sun. A monk appears on the path ahead, pushing a cart of vegetables that smell, suspiciously fermented. He sees you, nods, and murmurs, "You're here for the cheese." Not a question. You nod back. The original? He smiles. The attempt. He leads you to a secluded monastery tucked against the edge of a hill. Olive trees cluster at the perimeter like silent guards, and bees hum around a cluster of lavender bushes. The stone buildings are humble but ancient, weathered by time and, if the air's any indication, centuries of vigorous cheese-making. Inside the cloister, the chant grows louder. Deep voices rising and falling in harmony, not with words, but with syllables that roll and echo like a recipe-turned-prayer. The scent is unmistakable. Sharp, sweet, with that Tyrian undertone that has become a phantom signature. You're led into a cool chamber where 3 monks are gathered around a wide, shallow vat of curd. One stirs slowly with a wooden paddle carved into the shape of a goat. Another sprinkles crushed herbs, fennel, maybe, from a pouch lined in beeswax. The third is humming the chant you heard earlier. "This is our 7th attempt this season," the guide whispers. "Always under a waxing moon. Always before noon." Historians still argue whether these monks descended from actual Roman cheesemakers or just adopted the mystique to justify a truly aggressive monastic diet. But their methods are precise. Devout. Almost obsessive. They offer you a taste. It's warm, still setting, and has the consistency of soft pudding. You let it linger on your tongue. It's close. Dangerously close. The honey note is perfect. The goat milk creamy but clean. But the spice? It's too tame. There's no spark. You tell them. The eldest monk sighs. We've been debating that very thing. He opens a small wooden chest and pulls out 5 pouches, each labeled with a different script, some Latin, some Greek, one simply marked with a star symbol. "These are what we've tried," he says. "And none of them are quite right." You examine the contents. Coriander. Crushed fig leaf. A powder so bright red it makes your nose sting just looking at it. The monk leans closer. "There is one more, but we've never used it." He gestures to a locked cabinet, then fetches an iron key. Inside is a tiny jar of dark resin, sealed in wax. You instantly recognize the smell from the smuggler's vial, pungent, earthy, slightly medicinal. "Silphium," he whispers. Your breath catches. "That's not possible. It's extinct." The monk nods. "Or so they say. But we trade with an old woman from Cyrenaica. She claims her grove grows a few stalks still. Protected by superstition. Guarded by goats." You laugh, but the monk doesn't. "We've been saving this for a perfect batch. But perfection demands risk." You watch as he unwraps the resin and grates a sliver into the warm cheese. The others chant louder now, the tones resonating with the wooden beams above. He offers you another taste. You hesitate. Then spoon a small amount and let it rest on your tongue. Your heart skips. It's alive. There's a spark behind the sweetness. A rhythm in the flavor, like it's moving with your breath. You close your eyes and hear waves again. Wind over hills. A bell ringing far off. You open your eyes. The monks are watching you. Well, the elder asks. It's the closest I've ever tasted, you say, voice low. But it still fades too fast. The monk sighs. Yes, we feared that. Another says, the base is correct. The spice is perfect. But the timing, perhaps the milk wasn't right. The goat was new to the herd. That's when it hits you. It's not just ingredients, you murmur. It's conditions. The goat, the moon, the chant, the aging, it's everything. You can't isolate it. They nod. Lactarianum isn't a recipe, one says. It's an event. A pause. Then the elder looks at you and says something you weren't expecting. Would you like to stay and help us finish the batch? You do. For the next 3 days, you stir, chant, clean, mix, and wait. You taste every variation. Some are odd. One causes mild hallucinations and has to be buried discreetly. Another brings tears to a scribe who hasn't cried since his donkey died in 9 CE. You leave on the 4th day, a pouch of the latest batch tucked into your satchel. They warn you, eat it within 3 days. Or it forgets itself. Back on the road, the scent follows you like a companion. You're starting to realize, the secret to the lost cheese isn't just flavor, it's the moment. The place. The process. It was never meant to be industrialized. And Rome, in its panic, is trying to bottle the wind. By the time you return to Rome, the city is worse for wear. Crates of imitation cheese overflow in alleyways. Vendors shout half-hearted pitches about legendary blends and divine textures, but no one's really listening anymore. Even the pigeons look defeated. You pass a man scraping spoiled curds off his doorstep, muttering curses that involve goat intestines and imperial tax reform. You nod. He nods back. There's a silent understanding now, like survivors of some strange culinary siege. Your satchel still carries the monk's latest batch, wrapped tight in oilcloth, its scent growing fainter by the hour. The cheese has begun to forget itself. Like they said. You nibble a sliver. It's still good, complex, creamy, quietly floral, but the spark is fading. Time is a cruel companion. You arrive just in time to see a crowd gathering near the Baths of Trajan. A large platform has been set up, ringed with laurel branches and silk banners. In front of it, 100 citizens sit on low stools, holding their stomachs and groaning softly. Something's gone terribly wrong. A speaker steps up to the platform. Senator Arminius. Round, loud, and visibly sweating through his ceremonial sash. My fellow Romans, he declares, today's events are regrettable. But necessary. He gestures toward a set of crates lined up behind him. These wheels, he points, voice rising, were mass-produced under the so-called Imperial Cheese Revival Plan and shipped to 12 provinces in the last week. A pause. And now? This. He motions to the groaning audience, one of whom lets out a belch so wet it sounds like treason. Turns out, the Empire's big push to recreate Lactarianum on a mass scale has gone poorly. The problem, as one unfortunate taster explains to you between dry heaves, is that someone altered the brining schedule to cut time. Someone else used modified silphium extract, which, when exposed to heat, produces something akin to medicinal sewage. And no one properly filtered the goat milk. Result, wide-scale gastric mayhem. Historians still argue whether this moment, now remembered as the Great Gastric Incident, was sabotage, incompetence, or a divine warning. All 3 theories feel reasonable. You climb onto a stack of barrels for a better view. Physicians run from patient to patient with bowls of mint water and charcoal. A woman fans her husband with a palm frond while muttering, "We should have stuck to lentils." Senator Arminius keeps talking. These imposter cheeses threaten not just our health, but our dignity. This is an insult to Rome, and to the legacy of Apicius himself. Behind him, one of the crates makes a loud pop. The crowd flinches. A soft hiss follows. A cheese wheel has ruptured, spontaneously, and is now steaming gently. Everyone steps back. This isn't food anymore. It's a hazard. You feel something cold and slick against your ankle. Looking down, you spot a thick blob of melted curd oozing across the cobblestones, its color shifting between mustard and regret. You jump off the barrel and walk away quickly. Elsewhere in the city, The panic has shifted into paranoia. Shops now post signs, guaranteed not Tyrian style. Bakers brag that their pastries are 100% cheese-free. A barber markets Tyrian detoxes, which are just normal haircuts with a sprig of rosemary tucked behind your ear. In a dark alley, you pass a man in a hooded cloak whispering to a teenager, "I've got something mellow." Hints of honey. No gut rot. He opens a pouch. You don't stop. You've seen what happens next. The palace, meanwhile, is in damage control mode. You manage to get close enough to the inner gates to hear two guards grumble over a sloshing bucket. "Whole batch from Hispania," one says. "Frothy. Emperor wouldn't even smell it." "Heard he threw his plate again," the other adds. "Third one this week." You're not surprised. Tiberius, already notorious for his temper and odd culinary habits, he once demanded jellyfish omelets, is reportedly livid. Not just because he can't eat the real thing, but because everyone keeps trying. You sneak around the back of the palace, to the servants' quarters, where discarded wheels are piled like unwanted tribute. You spot one with the goat and moon sigil burned into the side. Curious, you slice off a sliver. And immediately regret it. It tastes like a honey-soaked sandal doused in ash and despair. Whoever made this batch misunderstood the assignment entirely. You spit it out and walk on, stomach lurching. There's a commotion near the Temple of Jupiter. A crowd gathers around a woman holding a chunk of cheese wrapped in beeswax. "I found it," she cries. "Buried in my grandfather's cellar, under amphory of wine. He told me to guard it for a time of need." People push forward, desperate to see. You catch a glimpse. It's aged, cracked, faintly golden. Someone holds a knife to slice it, and then sneezes. Right onto it. The crowd gasps. The woman sobs. It's contaminated. The cheese hits the ground. Chaos ensues. People argue whether dust or droplets count as spoilage. Others try to scoop crumbs into cloth napkins. One man yells, "It still smells authentic," while stuffing a piece into his mouth. You back away. Slowly. Rome, you realize, has reached a turning point. The cheese is no longer just a culinary mystery. It's a mirror. Of desperation. Of pride. Of the empire's obsessive need to define, label, and possess. You think of the monks, with their slow rituals and humble pride. Of the smuggler, the spice merchant, the child in the forum. All chasing a flavor that may never have been meant for mass consumption. Back in your lodging, you unwrap the monk-made sample one final time. You slice off the last piece. Let it rest on your tongue. It's dim now. The edges dulled. The spark gone. Still good. But not it. And somehow, that feels right. You don't remember falling asleep, but you wake to sunlight slanting across the floor in your rented room, illuminating the now empty wax cloth where the monk's cheese once rested. A trail of crumbs leads to the windowsill, where a smug-looking pigeon stares back at you, tilts its head, and coos like it just inherited Caesar's will. You sigh. There's no saving it now. Outside, the city is quieter, but not in the peaceful way. It's the quiet of tension hanging in the air, of crowds gathering without speaking, of people waiting to see what will crumble next. Cheese panic has turned into cheese fatigue. And that, strangely, makes it even more dangerous. You find yourself in a wealthy district, outside a sprawling villa with garlands of ivy woven across its gates. Inside, laughter rings out. The household of Senator Aelius Flaccus is hosting what's known as a wager feast. You've heard whispers of these, private competitions where Rome's elites gamble fortunes over which cook can get closest to the real Lactarianum. You slip inside, blending with the household staff, and enter a lush garden where long tables groan under trays of sliced cheese, roasted fruits, and honeyed nuts. Everything is beautifully presented, but the tension is thick enough to slice with a butter knife. Lady Aurelia, wife of the senator, sits at the head table wearing a silk tunic embroidered with tiny golden goats. She raises a glass. "To our brave cheesemakers," she says, smiling. "May they tempt our tongues and restore our pride." Polite applause. You take a seat near the back, next to a tutor who whispers, "This is the fourth wager this week. They bet a vineyard on the last one." The first dish is served. Small bites on olive wood platters. You taste. Sweet, floral, slightly tangy. Not bad. But the second? It hits closer. This one has a richer base, sharp edges, and a texture that melts just slowly enough to tease. Several guests lean in. Aulus, The senator's eldest son slaps the table and laughs. That's it. That's what father remembered from the banquets. The cook beams. But then comes the third. This one is humble, pale, slightly cracked on the rind. Someone mutters, looks dry. You taste it anyway. It starts off quiet. Too quiet. Then the layers begin to unfurl. Creamy, yes, but also earthy, complex. A smoky back note. A whisper of clover. Around the table, conversation halts. Glasses freeze midair. Lady Aurelia closes her eyes and exhales. By the gods, she says. It tastes like my grandmother's garden. At dusk, the cook bows. My mother's recipe. She learned it during the war. Said a traveling healer traded it for shelter and pomegranate wine. A hush falls over the garden. And then, it happens. Allah stands and hurls his plate across the lawn. She stole it, he bellows. That's our recipe. I know that taste. His wife gasps. You said yours used river herbs. Mine does, he snaps. But the healer was ours. He stayed at our villa, not theirs. The cook shrinks back. I swear, I didn't steal anything. More shouting. Chairs scrape. One woman throws a wine jug. A teenager starts crying, not from emotion, but from biting into the wrong cheese platter mid-fight. It spirals fast. Guests accuse each other of espionage. One man claims he had a dream about the cheese's true form and was going to unveil it next week. Another swears his aunt saw the original recipe tattooed on the back of a retired centurion from Cyprus. Lady Aurelia screams, "We had an agreement, no accusations unless the rind cracked." You dodge a flying platter and retreat into the corridor. A servant pulls you aside. This happens every time, he sighs. Last month they dueled over whose curd aged more virtuously. We had to replace the mosaic floor. Twice. You ask why they keep doing it. Because they can't not, he says. It's not about the cheese anymore. It's about who gets to say I knew it first. You nod. That tracks. Outside, the sun is setting. You pass another villa hosting a similar gathering. Laughter filters through the curtains, but it's tense, like a strained string waiting to snap. You catch bits of conversation. It was my uncle's recipe, I swear. I paid for a spice that only grows on Olympus. Coriander? Barbaric. The original had wild dill. Historians still argue whether these elite households truly possessed fragments of the original Lactarianum recipe or simply believed they did. Either way, the effect was the same, chaos wrapped in laurel leaves, served on imported plates. The feasts became status wars. The winners, minor legends. The losers? Social pariahs until they could redeem themselves with a new blend, a better wheel, a stronger story. You wander back toward the city square. A small girl passes you, holding a cheese wheel like a newborn baby. Her mother whispers, "Don't let anyone taste it yet, we need a name first." The fountain glows gold in the twilight. You sit and unwrap a sliver of bread, spread it with what little cheese remains in your pouch. A traveling musician nearby sings a ballad about a goat who fell in love with a wheel of cheese and wandered the empire searching for its mate. You think about the wager feasts, the yelling nobles, the shattered platters. All of it in pursuit of a flavor that might never have existed in one consistent form. Maybe that's the point. Maybe it was never about replicating perfection. Maybe it was about the stories we wrap around the taste. Dawn breaks hazy and humid, the kind of Rome morning that makes your tunic stick to your back before breakfast. You're already walking, aimless but alert, following the scent of smoke and bread rising over the rooftops. The city's quieter today, but not calmer. It's a breath held before something larger, like everyone knows that the cheese fever hasn't peaked yet. You pass a wine cellar chatting with a legionnaire. Heard the Goths have a version, the merchant says. They call it Kostraka. Supposed to taste like pine sap and justice. The soldier laughs. Only if justice makes you burp for 3 days. You slow your step. A foreign cheese? You stop at the merchant's stall. The Goths have a Tyrian-style cheese? He raises an eyebrow. Heard it from a trader out of Pannonia. Says they call it the fire curd. Trade it like currency. Some say it's better than the Roman kind. You press for details. He shrugs. No idea. But it's starting to matter. Goths are demanding it at the borders. Swapping salt and pelts for wheels. Makes our version look like goat soap. That, frankly, sounds like a threat. And so, of course, you follow it. 2 days later, you're riding along the northern border on a rickety cart filled with smoked meats and bundles of herbs. The driver, a lanky Gaul with a tattoo of a cheese wedge on his wrist, you don't ask, says he's heading toward a Gothic outpost to make a trade run. Strange people, he says. Like their cheese warm and biting. Like it's judging you while you eat it. You nod. Seems appropriate. By the time you arrive, the sun's dipping low behind the mountains. The outpost isn't large, just a scattering of wooden buildings, a fortified hall, and a stone-lined courtyard where locals gather under torches and pass around wooden plates piled with crumbly, golden cheese. You're immediately struck by the scent, smokier than Roman blends, sharper, almost peppery. It bites your nose. You cough. A tall man approaches. Heavy cloak, braided beard. His voice is gravel. You came for the cheese? You nod. He lifts a chunk the size of a fist and breaks off a piece. This one, he says, was gifted to us by a Roman diplomat. But it was weak, so we fixed it. You try it. The texture is crumbly, almost chalky, but it melts on your tongue with a strange, warming bitterness. There's honey in there, but also something herbal and aggressive, like wild mint and pine needles fought and made peace. It's not lactarianum. Not really. But it's a cousin. A proud one. We trade it now, the man says. They ask for wine, we say, bring cheese instead. 1 will get you a horse. 2, a sword. You whistle. They want peace, he adds. We want flavor. Historians still argue whether the Gothic variant was an adaptation or an invention, but it shook Rome nonetheless. Especially when border skirmishes started ending with strange requests. Not land, not gold, but cheese. Word spreads fast. A senator's aide brings news to the capital. They've taken a liking to the Tyrian style. And now they want more. You watch a debate unfold in the Curia Julia. They're mocking us, one senator says. Turning our culture into their snacks. They're honoring us, another replies. It's cheese diplomacy. It's extortion. It's dinner. The chamber devolves into shouting, again. You return to the Gothic outpost 2 weeks later, curious. Things have changed. There's now a Roman stall in the courtyard, manned by a very sweaty bureaucrat in a travel-stained toga, trading scrolls for spice samples and fermenting instructions. The Goths, in turn, offer critiques. Too soft. Smells like cowardice. Good rind, though. You're offered another wheel. This one is better. Still different, bolder, salter, but it has a confidence to it. It doesn't pretend to be lactarianum. It's something else. Something new. Something Gothic. And it's spreading. Back in Rome, the reports come like thunder. In Gaul, a farmer claims to have created a hybrid blend, Tyrian base, Gothic spice. In Hispania, noble households begin importing Gothic curds for medicinal purposes. In Alexandria, scribes copy a Gothic cheese-making scroll by candlelight. And the Senate? The Senate panics harder. They're corrupting the recipe, one roars. It's imperial theft. It's evolution, says another. Or survival. Tiberius himself is briefed. His response? A single, grunted phrase, bring me a wheel. He eats it alone, under guard, while 3 physicians stand by. A rumor surfaces the next day. He liked it. Didn't love it, but liked it, which is something. And just like that, the Goths get bolder. They send a diplomatic envoy bearing 2 gifts, a sheepskin scroll with fermentation notes and a single pristine will of Kostraka Regal. You're there in the hall when they present it. The lead envoy says, we desire peace and more milk. Rome laughs. Nervously. Because while legions and lions on maps matter, so does pride. And Rome has just been offered peace by people who may have actually improved on its most sacred cheese. And that, somehow, might be more destabilizing than war. You leave the Senate Hall feeling like you've witnessed an earthquake, not the kind that shakes buildings, but the kind that rearranges how a civilization thinks about itself. Rome just got offered peace, not with olive branches, not with gold, but with a wedge of cheese that might, just might, be better than the original. And no one knows how to feel about it. You walk the streets as torches are lit, watching the flickering flames cast strange shadows on marble walls. You hear snippets of conversation everywhere. They're using honey from Black Mountain bees, I swear. Barbarians don't understand nuance. It's a performance cheese. I don't care where it's from, if it doesn't make my nose itch, I don't trust it. But it's not just the streets that are humming. The temples, too, are caught in the curd-fueled frenzy. You hear that offerings of cheese are being brought to altars now, not just bread, wine, and the occasional unlucky dove. You head to the Temple of Vesta first, curious. There, amid burning incense and soft hymns, a priestess carries a small silver platter with 6 triangular slices, each supposedly representing a phase of the true Tyrian recipe. You lean in. The scent is promising. The rind even has that faint ashy swirl the monks insisted was crucial. One priest, wearing robes too pristine to trust, whispers to another, "This cheese may have been the one placed in Jupiter's mouth during the triumph of Germanicus." The other raises an eyebrow. "I thought that was a honey cake." "Not anymore. The archives were revised." You don't know whether to be impressed or horrified. Further into the temple complex, you stumble into a debate, 3 priests sitting cross-legged around an offering platter, arguing over whether cheese can carry divine intent. One claims he had a vision where Minerva herself blessed a batch that cured his back pain. Another insists that a particularly fragrant will once turned rain clouds away from a harvest. You stifle a laugh as they go back and forth, arguing about rind thickness and divine fat ratios. Historians still argue whether the gods were ever actually invoked in cheese-making rituals, or if Rome just spiritualized everything it couldn't control. But the evidence, murky, poetic, and deeply biased, suggests at least one major festival involved a ceremonial cheese toss. Possibly at a statue. Possibly from a statue. The records are unclear. You leave the Temple of Vesta behind and wander toward the lesser-known shrines, ones where odd things tend to stick around longer. The Temple of Cloacina, for instance, the goddess of the sewer. You didn't expect to find anything relevant there. But you do. 2 cloaked figures are carefully unwrapping a wax-sealed parcel beside the altar. The smell is so powerful it nearly knocks you over. Not from rot, but intensity. It's powerful. You watch as they slice it open with a knife carved from bone. Inside, a soft, glistening lill of something golden, shot through with veins of deep green. They pray. Not to Cloacina, but to the gods of the old rind, which, frankly, you suspect they made up on the spot. Still, you respect the dedication. They each take a piece and chew with the reverence of men tasting prophecy. One of them begins to cry. You ask what it is. They look up, eyes wide. "It was left here," one whispers. 2 days ago. No note. No explanation. They offer you a slice. You hesitate. Then eat. The first note is pine. Not sharp, more like the memory of pine. Then salt, then the faintest smoke. And under it all, the telltale Tyrian sweetness, but deeper, aged, patient, like it waited for you to grow into it. It's good. Frighteningly good. But is it the cheese? You're not sure. But you do know something else. It's not Roman. Not entirely. There's a wildness in it. A swagger. The kind of flavor you can't regulate or replicate without ruining it. One of the cloaked men leans close. We think it came from the border. Maybe even from the Goths. Or someone they traded with. Whoever made it didn't care about purity laws. They cared about truth. You leave the shrine shaken, your tongue still buzzing. Back at the forum, word of the divine cheese has already spread. A senator demands it be seized and tested. A priest of Jupiter says it should be destroyed for theological contamination. A scribe tries to sketch its veining pattern from memory but ends up drawing a goat playing a flute. In the chaos, someone suggests a solution: hold a public tasting. Let the people decide. And against all odds, the proposal gains traction. 3 days later, a raised platform appears in the forum. A velvet-lined table. A golden knife. And in the center, under glass, the mysterious cheese from Cloacina's temple. Hundreds gather. Some to taste. Some to protest. Some just for the drama. A herald calls out the rules. 1 sliver per citizen. No bribes. No trading slices. No ritual sacrifices without paperwork. You're near the front. When your turn comes, you take your bite. It's still extraordinary. Still haunting. But this time, you notice something else. People react to it differently. One woman weeps. Another laughs uncontrollably. A man stares off into space like he's remembering the name of a long-lost dog. A boy simply says, "It tastes like home." The senator who demanded its seizure eats it, then orders another slice. Even the priest of Jupiter, after a dramatic protest, nibbles his ration, and quietly pockets a second wedge for further inspection. The vote is informal, but overwhelming. The cheese stays. It's placed in a public vault, under guard. A new holiday is proposed. Children are taught the veining pattern in school. And just like that, Rome makes room for the divine cheese. It's not the original. But it matters. Because now, the cheese isn't just lost. It's reborn. You barely make it home before the streets explode. Not with violence, not at first, but with a strange, electrified energy that spreads like wildfire. A rumor has begun its march through the alleyways and forums in crowded tenements of Rome, and it walks faster than a herald with free wine. Someone found the wheel. Not just a wheel, the wheel. Intact. Ancient. Buried in the root cellar of a collapsed villa just outside the Aventine Hill. An old estate being renovated by a merchant who didn't believe in superstition or salting his beans. He broke through a wall and found a cool stone chamber, perfectly sealed, untouched for decades. Maybe centuries. And in the middle of that chamber, wrapped in beeswax and linen, sitting on a slab of carved marble like some edible sarcophagus, was a cheese wheel bearing the unmistakable crescent moon and goat sigil. Word spreads so fast, by the time you get there, half the city has already arrived. The crowd outside the villa pulses with chaotic devotion. A full band of flute players has assembled. Children have climbed up walls. One woman is selling miniature goat figurines made of bread. Another offers air from the original cellar in tiny vials. You squeeze through the throng just in time to see the gates creak open and a pair of guards emerge, carrying the cheese on a velvet tray like it's the newborn savior of Rome. The crowd surges forward. The guards raise their spears. A priest shouts, "Stand back. The cheese must not be jostled." You catch a glimpse as they carry it past. The rind is cracked in a beautiful, almost deliberate pattern. The smell reaches you like a whispered legend. It's faint, but unmistakable. The kind of scent that brings memories you never had. Warm kitchens. Distant music. Your stomach makes a sound that's neither hunger nor awe, but some unholy fusion of both. They place the wheel inside a crystal case. Yes, someone had a crystal case prepared within an hour, and begin the rituals. And then the debate begins. Because of course it does. Who gets the first slice? Someone demands. Should we even cut it at all? Counters another. One philosopher insists that tasting it will desecrate history. This wheel has survived. It should be preserved, revered, perhaps even worshipped. A merchant argues that cheese not eaten is cheese wasted. What are we, Carthaginians? A scribe declares, we must document its flavor for future generations. A child nearby mutters, I just want to lick it. And suddenly the guards have to form a tighter circle. It takes hours for the Senate to organize an emergency decree. The wheel will be analyzed, cataloged, and one slice may be removed. Only one. To be tasted under strict supervision, in a controlled setting, with a philosopher, a priest, a senator, and a cook all present. You sneak in. Because of course you do. The analysis takes place in a vaulted chamber beneath the Palatine Hill. The air smells like hope and goat. The appointed four stand before the wheel like it's a captured god. A blade is brought forth, bronze, polished, used once in a temple rite and never again. A single, reverent cut. The slice is no thicker than a senator's thumb. It is placed on 4 separate plates. The participants sit. And they eat. The philosopher bursts into tears. It's perfectly balanced, he whispers. All things in harmony. Sweetness. Salt. Time. Pain. The priest is silent for a full minute, then declares, the gods forgive us. Or possibly, they envy us. The senator leans back and mutters, I remember this flavor, from my wedding feast, before the fire. The cook just laughs. Loud. Unashamed. We were all wrong, he says. We kept trying to build the flavor. But this was born. You don't get a slice. But one guard, moved by your expression, and possibly mistaking you for an assistant to the assistant philosopher, passes you a fragment. Barely a crumb. You taste it, and for a moment, everything slows. There's sweetness, yes, but not childish. It's tempered, mature, a hint of ash, a flicker of wild herb. The texture melts, but doesn't disappear. It lingers. It holds. Your heart stutters. It's not a taste, it's a conversation. A memory. A promise. It's the cheese. The original. Somehow preserved. Somehow real. And you know instantly, this will break Rome. Because now that they've had it, really had it, nothing else will do. And it begins immediately. The forum becomes a frenzy of accusation and despair. Merchants weep. All are Blenzo lies, they cry. One noblewoman throws her entire pantry into the Tiber. Priests demand the cheese be placed in a shrine. Philosophers write entire treatises overnight. One suggests that the wheel is proof of eternal recurrence. Another that it contains the secrets of the universe, encoded in flavor. Someone tries to steal it. A baker tries to bake it into a tart and is nearly trampled. And everywhere, people are screaming the same thing. Make more! But there's none left. One wheel. One taste. That's all. Historians still argue whether the wheel was from Apicius' kitchens, or a prototype forgotten in a wealthy gourmand's cellar. Some claim it's not even Roman, that it was imported, forgotten, and misidentified. Others say it was never real at all, just a perfectly fermented accident. But everyone agrees on one thing. It was transcendent. And now, Rome has remembered what it once tasted. And that's the beginning of the real panic. You don't leave your quarters for a day and a half. Not because you're afraid, but because the city has turned. It's not rioting, yet, but it's twitching at the edges. Like a loaf left too long to rise, swollen and unstable. The taste of the real cheese has done something worse than poison or spoilage. It's infected Rome with longing. You open your shutters and look out. A man below is hawking scented cheese oil, smells like the real thing. A child chases pigeons with a stick painted like a cheese wedge. And across the street, a noblewoman paints a fresco of a goat kneeling under a moon. This isn't marketing anymore. It's mythology. Later that afternoon, you overhear a physician whispering in a bathhouse. There's illness going around. Stomach pains, skin blotches. No fever. No poison. Just malaise. His companion nods. Started after the tasting. Historians still argue whether this was an actual disease, a case of bad dairy timing, or simply mass psychosomatic disappointment. But the records agree, something spread. And it wasn't physical. It was loss. Because once people knew what was possible, everything else became an insult. You wander toward the apothecary district to see if anyone's concocted a cure. Instead, you find chaos. Every third shop is selling cheese bombs, flavor teas, and digestive clarity salts said to open the tongue to memory. One man waves a smoking thurible in the street, declaring the original cheese a gift from Bacchus himself and this cheese blindness a divine test. But it's worse in the markets. You spot a vendor sobbing into his wheel. It's not real, he wails. It never was. His neighbor offers him a bite of her own cheese. Here, I added apple blossom. It's nice. He bites it, spits it out, screams. And then comes the first true violence. It starts in a side street near the Subura. A man swindles another with a fake shard of the sacred cheese, preserved in wax. The victim, an aging potter with shaky hands, tastes it, realizes it's goat dung mixed with honey, and breaks the seller's nose with a candelabra. From there, the rage spreads like fire. You hear about a tavern set ablaze after a server called his cheese authenticish. A baker is tackled and shaved by a mob after advertising Tyrian-flavored pastries. You find yourself sprinting through a side alley just to avoid a crowd overturning carts and chanting, "True or nothing." Rome, at last, has erupted. And then the rumors shift again. The original wheel, the one found under the villa? It's gone. Vanished. Some say stolen. Others say it melted, mysteriously, like the gods decided mortals weren't worthy. You track down the curator who'd been guarding it. He's pale, sweating. He swears it was there when he left. Came back from lunch, gone. No prints. No scratch marks. Just a faint scent of clover. That scent again. You press further. Some believe it was smuggled to Alexandria. Others say the Goths demanded it as part of a new treaty. A few whisper that the wheel had never been real at all, that it was staged, faked, concocted by the emperor's own kitchen to control the masses. Theories breed faster than mold. You return to the forum just in time to see the latest proclamation nailed to a pillar. Imperial Cheese Clarification Decree. Effective immediately, all claims of original authenticity must be submitted for testing to the Office of Culinary Truths. Unauthorized use of the phrase Tyrian recipe is punishable by exile. You read it twice. You're not even surprised anymore. Nearby, a man collapses in the street. I tasted it, he moans. And now I can't taste anything else. A street performer next to him improvises a poem. Once I chewed the dream of cheese. And now no meal brings me to my knees. A curse and rind, a gift and ghost. We chase the crumb and pay the most. A passing senator hears the poem and weeps into his sleeve. You duck into a side street for air. There, an older woman sits quietly in the shade, spinning wool and watching it all. She sees you. Smiles. It was always going to happen, you know. You blink. What was? She points to the city. They were always going to break themselves over it. The taste wasn't the danger, it was the memory. The promise that something perfect once existed. You sit beside her. She pulls a wheel from her satchel, unwraps it slowly. The rind is cracked. The scent is modest. Familiar. She slices a piece and hands it to you. You chew. It's nothing like the original. But it's warm. Honest. Slightly grassy. You smile. It's good. She nods. That's all it ever had to be. Back in the main square, a priest declares a citywide fast from cheese to cleanse the soul. Crowds cheer. Some cry. But behind the cheers, Rome stirs restlessly. Because one bite wasn't enough. Because perfection is a poison you ask for seconds of. Because the wheel may be gone, but the craving remains. You spend the next few days laying low. Rome is not safe for the curious right now, not when cheese is being sniffed with more suspicion than imperial tax scrolls. Not when the phrase "have you tried this blend" is grounds for exile, or at least an intense public argument over fermentation ethics. But you can't stay hidden forever. Word reaches you via a sleepy tavern boy with bad breath and excellent eavesdropping skills. The Secretarium Vigilum, Rome's internal security force, has launched a formal investigation. Into what, you ask? Cheese. Specifically, illegal cheese. Black market Tyrian-style knockoffs. Underground flavor labs. Rogue goats. It sounds absurd. It is absurd. But you know better than to laugh. Because in Rome, once the secret police take an interest, jokes turn into subpoenas very quickly. So you tail them. It doesn't take long. Their cloaks are black, their sandals polished, and they always travel in pairs, one silent, one sniffing the air like a bloodhound raised in a dairy. They raid a cellar near the Geniculum, dragging out barrels labeled wine vinegar that reek of overripe curd. The merchant swears it's all for pickling. Pickling what? The agent snaps. Hopes and lies? You follow them to a bathhouse where the steam is laced with rosemary and guilt. A discreet chef is hauled out mid-massage for unauthorized brining in a communal pool. You peek into an office tucked behind the Temple of Saturn and spot rows of confiscated wheels cataloged in wax-sealed crates, each tagged with codes like F14, Suspect Bloom, and D8, Forged Rind. At first, it's only merchants and cooks. Then, the arrests spread. A poet is taken for slipping cheese metaphors into a love elegy. Her scent, like honeyed rind upon my lips. A senator is interrogated for receiving a wheel in a diplomatic package marked salted olives. Even a stable boy is detained after his goat was caught near a pile of contraband herbs. Historians still argue whether the Vigilum acted independently, or under orders from Tiberius himself, whose appetite may have returned, but not his trust. The official reason was preservation of public order. But the streets had their own theory. The emperor wanted exclusivity. And if he couldn't find the recipe, no one else could have it either. You begin hearing murmurs of a new title whispered on the wind, Lactis Custodes, the guardians of the milk. You catch a glimpse of one at dusk. Tall. Pale. Cloak stitched with a thread-thin goat sigil. He knocks on the back door of a spice vendor shop. The vendor opens it, then goes pale. No more. Please. I surrendered my wheels. The guardian speaks once, and your knowledge? There's silence. Then the sound of a scroll burning. You back away. Far from the city center, in the poorest districts, a different kind of resistance forms. Street cheesemongers begin marking their stalls with chalk glyphs, a crescent, a rind, a broken wedge. It means, flavor lives here. They swap techniques in code. They ferment in rooftop jars. Some wear spice sachets around their necks and claim to dream of flavor every night. You visit one, a boy barely old enough to shave, who opens a jar and says, "Taste this." You do. It's soft. Improvised. A little sour. But bold. Alive. He grins. We don't want the original. We want the future. Not everyone agrees. In a wealthy villa near the Capitoline, you witness a secret tasting turned sting operation. The guests, thinking themselves safe, pass slices by candlelight. My cousin got this from Egypt, one whispers. Came wrapped in palm leaf in desperation. Then the door bursts open. Black cloaks. Torches. Scrolls bearing the emperor's seal. Cries. Clatter. The table overturned. You duck behind a statue of Diana and watch as one of the guards uncovers a barrel. Inside, 10 small wheels stamped with the goat and moon. The real mark. The senator hosting the feast tries to protest. It's just symbolic. A novelty. His voice breaks as they place him in cuffs. One of the guardians lifts a slice, sniffs it, and says flatly, "This one's too close." You return to the forum the next morning and find it changed. A new edict, posted on the marble wall, the flavor sanctions. All aged cheese production is suspended. Spices imported for fermentation must be declared and tested. Anyone found in possession of undocumented wheels is subject to exile or conscription. All previously issued goat and moon insignia are invalid. And at the bottom, in imperial crimson, the tongue remembers. That is the danger. People begin to disappear. Quietly. Carefully. Some vanish from their shops. Others from their kitchens. A few from their beds. No bodies. Just silence. You run into Tullius again, the culinary archivist you met in Apicius' kitchen. His beard is longer now. His eyes sharper. They're not trying to find it anymore, he says. You frown. What do you mean? They're trying to erase it. You realize he's holding a scroll. Not just any scroll. A recipe. You glance at it. There are symbols you don't recognize. Ingredients you've never seen listed together. Instructions sung rather than written. He sees your face. It's not the real one, he says. But it's close. And that makes it dangerous. You ask what he'll do with it. He shrugs. Bury it. Maybe in a jar of oil. Maybe in a tomb. Maybe in someone else. He hands it to you. You've got the memory now. Guard it. Or forget it. But don't let them make you believe it never existed. And just like that, he's gone. And now you're standing in the shadows of Rome, scroll pressed to your chest, knowing more than anyone should. Knowing that cheese, real cheese, is no longer just food. It's forbidden knowledge. And the world has started hunting it. You don't sleep that night. Not really. You try. You lie down, watch the oil lamp flicker shadows on the wall, try counting sheep, then goats, then curdling vats. But the scroll is still there, tucked inside your satchel, whispering in your head like a forbidden lullaby. You keep replaying Tullius's words, guard it. Or forget it. You can't forget it. At dawn, you slip out into the streets, scroll carefully wrapped in oiled linen beneath your tunic. The city feels changed. Not in the chaotic, open panic of before, but something colder. Tighter. Like the whole of Rome has been wrapped in a silk cord and gently pulled. You pass shuttered cheese stalls now repurposed to sell figs and olives. Guards linger longer at market corners. No one speaks loudly. Everyone sniffs everything. And somewhere between the bakery and the bathhouse, you hear the word, Byzantium. It comes from a sailor bragging at a wine cart. They've banned it here, he slurs, but over there? They're just getting started. You double back and ask what he means. Byzantium, he repeats. They're calling it the new capital of flavor. A governor out east started his own cheese circle. Open fermenting. Public tastings. Said Rome's too paranoid. Over there, they celebrate the Tyrian legacy. He burps. They've even got recipe school. Sort of. You feel a chill that has nothing to do with the weather. That night, you leave Rome under a false name, wearing the robes of a minor spice trader and carrying only a satchel, a loaf of bread, and the scroll. The journey takes weeks. Roads winding. Weather erratic. But every mile eastward, something shifts. The fear of Rome fades. The scent of spice thickens. And by the time you reach the gates of Byzantium, the guards barely glance at you. Inside, it's a different world. Vibrant. Curious. Unapologetic. Stalls openly sell wedges labeled Tyrian Touch, Go to the Moon, and Imperial Echo. People sample in public. Judges award medals. There's even a fountain in the central square shaped like a cheese wheel, water trickling down engraved rind ridges. You're stunned. and, frankly, suspicious. You visit one of the recipe schools tucked behind a columned bathhouse. It's a converted library, stacked with scrolls and amphorae. Students chant brining times. One section is labeled Coriander Debates, Volume 4. You're led into a tasting chamber by a woman named Eleni, who smells faintly of thyme and toasted almond. She places a wheel in front of you, small, ash-ringed, topped with dried flowers. "This won silver at last month's symposium," she says. "Honey base. Goat curd blend. Whisper of fennel. Aged under a citrus tree." You bite. It's bright, playful, remarkably balanced, almost joyful. But it's not the one. Still, you nod. "It's excellent." Eleni smiles. "Here, we don't chase perfection. We honor the process." You blink. "You don't want the original?" She laughs softly. "Want it? Of course. But obsess over it? No. We believe flavor evolves. The Tyrian recipe wasn't a goal. It was a moment. You feel the scroll at your side, warm against your ribs. You don't show her. Not yet. Instead, you explore. You taste. You watch cheese being cured in clay pots, rubbed with olive paste, stored under grape leaves, serenaded, yes, serenaded, by musicians who swear it changes the rind texture. It's freedom. It's chaos. It's everything Rome is afraid of. And that's the problem. Because a week into your stay, you see the first agent. Black cloak. No badge. But you recognize the sandals. The stillness. The way he smells the air at every stall. Rome has arrived. You confront Eleni. They'll come for it all. She nods. "We know. That's why we've hidden what matters." You frown. "The scrolls?" "No," she says. "The palettes." You don't understand until the next day, when you're taken to a courtyard behind the school. There, 50 people, cooks, poets, goat herders, stand with eyes closed, chewing slowly. One by one, they describe what they taste. Not with ingredients, but with feelings. Spring rain on old stone. The warmth of holding someone's hand too long. Loneliness, but the good kind. Home. You're stunned. Eleni leans in. "We're building memories. In people. Not paper." You finally show her the scroll. She studies it. Nods once. "Keep it. But don't let it trap you." And as you leave, she says something that stays with you. Flavor doesn't belong to the past. It belongs to whoever feels it next. And that night, you stand in your room above the sea, scroll unrolled, bread in hand, cheese on tongue. And you taste, not the original, but something new. And Rome? Rome can't stop that. By the time you return to Rome, things have shifted. Not collapsed. Not healed. Something in between. Like a wound that's closed over, but still itches when the weather changes. The gates are still guarded, the laws still posted. But people move differently now. Quieter. More cautious. As if every wheel of cheese carries a trace of treason. You pass a former cheese stall repurposed into a shrine. Small votive candles line the shelf, flickering beside offerings, dried herbs, wax seals, scraps of rind wrapped in linen like holy relics. Someone's painted a mural beside it, a goat under a crescent moon, weeping golden tears into a bowl. You leave a small sliver of what you brought from Byzantium at the altar. Not for the gods. For the memory. The scroll is still hidden in your satchel. You haven't looked at it since Eleni touched it. Not really. But you feel it. Like a slow heartbeat against your side. The words weigh more than parchment ever should. And so, of course, you go to the tomb. You've heard whispers of it before. A senator's crypt in a southern necropolis, sealed for decades, now crumbling under ivy and time. Rumored to contain many things, spoiled scrolls, dead ledgers, secret love letters. But most importantly, a book, not a scroll. A book. That alone would make it rare. But the rumor insists it's not just any book. It's a cookbook. You arrive before sunrise, the only visitor besides a flock of crows and a stonemason who doesn't ask why you're here. He just nods toward the cracked marble arch and says, "It's cooler inside. Mind your step." Inside, dust coats the air. You pass carved busts of long-dead dignitaries, all looking vaguely constipated. One wall bears an inscription, "Let my name rot before my spice mix does." That's promising. You follow the passage downward until it opens into a vaulted chamber. And there it is. A sealed compartment in the back wall, its latch broken by time or curiosity. Inside, a wooden case. You open it. Inside that, a bundle of wax linen. Inside that, the book. It smells like cloves and regret. You open to the middle. No title. Just headings in neat, practiced Latin. And margins, covered in notes, corrections, rants. It's not a formal volume. It's a journal. You flip carefully. Pages crackle. There's an entry. The Tyrian blend demands humility. It will not be rushed. It will not be explained. It knows what it is. The best we can do is remember. Below it, measurements scribbled, then crossed out. Substituted. Changed again. Then, try goat milk from the southern slopes. No clover. Too sweet. A whole page devoted to silphium, then scratched over with the note, use if desperate. Not divine. It's not a recipe. It's a relationship. The last few pages are blank, save for one line written large. Flavor is not obedience. It is trust. You sit there a long time. The book is priceless. Dangerous. Half the Senate would burn it. The other half would kill to own it. You don't take it. Instead, you transcribe a single page into your own hand. The one about humility. You memorize the rest. Burn the margins into your brain. Close the book. Reseal the compartment. Let it sleep. Back in the light, Rome feels heavier. You know more now, but you also know what knowledge does. It twists, corrupts, melts. So you keep the scroll. But you don't use it. Not yet. Instead, you begin listening. Really listening. The way a cheesemaker listens to milk. The way a priest listens to silence. You find others, slowly, who still whisper the old notes. Who remember the real taste, not with their tongues, but their hearts. And one night, sitting around a fire on the edge of town, an old man offers you a bite from a wrapped wedge he's saved since the fair. You taste it, and it's terrible. Sour. Cracked. Nearly chalk. But he smiles. It was perfect, he says. And somehow, that's enough. Historians still debate whether the Tombs cookbook was the real thing. Some say it was satire, others a forgery. A few believe it was an early experiment, one of the 1,000 stepping stones toward the true Tyrian blend. But the real scholars, the ones who've tasted, cried, tried, failed, and dared again, they know. The truth is not written. It's felt. Later, you walk past a group of children playing in the dust, forming wheels from mud and flowers. One raises his in triumph. Mine's the best, he shouts. Another snorts. Yours tastes like donkey. They laugh. They trade bites. They argue. One mutters, let's ask the moon goat. And you smile. Because the memory lives. Not in the laws. Not in the scrolls. Not even in the flavor. But in the stories. And stories are hard to ban. You don't notice the shift at first. It's subtle. A lightness in the air. A drop in the tension that's clung to Rome like smoke for months. Then you start seeing the signs, small things. A cheese stall reopening, its sign simply reading good enough. A family eating in public again, passing a modest will without ceremony. A child trading slices for marbles in the street. The panic hasn't vanished, but it's dulled. Worn itself down. People are tired of fear. Even fear coated in rind. But in the halls of power, something else stirs. Not calm. Control. The emperor, Tiberius, has not forgotten the riots, the counterfeits, the humiliation of nearly vomiting in front of a Gothic emissary. And now, his scribes are drafting something new. You hear about it first in a bathhouse, whispered over warm water and cold wine. He's going to end it, someone says. No more scrolls. No more cheese talk. He wants the recipe buried. You laugh, thinking it's a joke. It isn't. The proclamation arrives by noon the next day. Hand-delivered to every province, posted on every gate. Let it be known, henceforth, all attempts to replicate, preserve, or profit from the so-called Tyrian blend are forbidden. The past belongs to the ashes. The tongue shall serve only the future. And below, in the emperor's own hand, perfection is not for mortals. The city freezes. For once, no one riots. No one protests. They just go still. It's not a ban. It's a funeral. You're in the forum when they light the pyres. Scrolls, wheels, sealed clay pots, everything gathered, catalogued, and burned under watch. The flames smell strange. Sweet, then sour, then something you can't name. People gather in silence, some crying, some numb, some clutching invisible memories. The cheesemakers don't fight. They just turn away. A few sing softly as they walk. You spot a monk watching from the steps, lips pressed in prayer. He meets your gaze. Nods once. You know what he's thinking. The recipe may be banned, but flavor isn't. The decree spreads quickly. Markets across the empire clear their shelves. Temples remove their offerings. Scribes erase references from cookbooks. One even chisels a goat off a mosaic. You visit the cheese vault one last time. It's been sealed. The guards are gone. The shelves, empty. In their place, a stone plaque reading, "Let memory rest." But memory doesn't rest. It lingers. In the back rooms of taverns. In whispered stories at border posts. In the corners of minds where flavors still dance. You meet a man at the edge of the Aventine. He's old, wrinkled, smells faintly of time and something smoky. He doesn't give a name, just hands you a pouch. Inside, a soft, pale wedge. "My brother made it," he says, "from memory." His hands knew what his mouth forgot. You taste it. It's humble, barely seasoned, no fanfare. And then it shifts. A note of ash, a touch of sweetness, a flicker of goat. Your heart stutters. Not because it's the real one, but because it doesn't try to be. You sit there, under the fading sun, and let it melt. No one needs to know. Back in your quarters, you unwrap the scroll. One last time. You trace the letters slowly. You've read it 100 times. You know the words. But tonight, something new stands out. A margin note. Faint. Slanted. Almost hidden. If you have reached this line, then you've understood. This was never about cheese. You laugh. Loud, then soft. Because of course it wasn't. It was about longing. About identity. About trying to hold onto something that was never meant to stay the same. You take the scroll, wrap it tight, and walk to the Tiber. The stars are just beginning to show. The river hums. You press the scroll to your lips. Then let it go. It drifts. Spins. Sinks. And still, you remember. You wake to rain. Not a dramatic storm, just the soft, steady kind that makes the rooftops whisper and the stones glisten like polished bone. Rome breathes differently under rain, slower, quieter, as if the city's wounds have scabbed over and are finally, mercifully, left alone. You step into the street, hood up, eyes open. No guards today. No decrees being nailed to pillars. No confiscations, no screams. Just the drizzle and the smell of rosemary from a nearby window. You pass a shop with its shutters open for the first time in weeks. The owner, a wiry man with too many rings and not enough teeth, nods at you. He's arranging baskets. Olives, dates, flatbread, and something wrapped in cloth that he doesn't name and you don't ask about. You nod back. The silence is the point. No more labels. No more declarations of authentic. Rome is done chasing ghosts. But ghosts still linger. You take the long way to the Palatine, past collapsed temples and rain-drenched statues, all of them staring off as if they, too, remember the flavor. You stop at a broken marble bench where a young boy sits, soaked, gnawing on something wrapped in fig leaves. He offers you a bite without a word. You take it. It's terrible. Sour, flat, confused. You smile and nod anyway. Close, you say. He grins. "I'm working on it." You believe him. The rain keeps falling, washing the alleyways, dulling the city's sharper edges. You find yourself walking toward an old warehouse you once visited, the one where wheels were sealed, stored, protected. You don't expect anything to be left. But when you step inside, you hear it. A note. A voice. Singing. Wordless, low, rhythmic. Not a prayer. A stirring. A memory. You follow it to the back wall, where a single will rests on a table, unfinished, fresh, no rind yet. A vat beside it steams gently, and standing over it is a girl. 17, maybe. Elbow deep in curds. Focused. She looks up. "You here to stop me?" she asks. You shake your head. "I'm here to watch." She nods and returns to her work. "My grandfather used to hum that song," she says. "Said it helped the fermentation." You nod. It does. You don't know if that's true, but it feels right. She stirs. You sit, and together, without planning it, you begin to talk about the cheese. Not the original, not the panic, but the craft, the patience, the courage it takes to not chase perfection but to create something worth tasting anyway. She adds a handful of herbs. You recognize one. Fennel. Not traditional. Not approved. Not even close. And that's why it might just work. She offers you a spoon. You taste. It's warm. Still forming. Still uncertain. But there's promise in it. Not the promise of fame or history. The promise of trying again. Of passing the flavor forward. She doesn't write anything down. Doesn't whisper any secret formula. Just stirs, and hums, and lets it become what it wants to become. You stay until dusk. Then longer. Until the city grows dark and the rain fades and a single candle glows beside the vat. Outside, Rome has moved on. New fashions. New wars. New stories. But in here, there is only milk, motion, memory. The recipe is gone. But the spirit remains. A little less precise. A little more forgiving. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. You wake early. Before the light fully settles over the rooftops, before the vendors shout their first prices, before the footsteps of the restless city begin their daily rhythm. Something pulls you from bed, not a sound, not a scent, just a quiet certainty that today, something ends. Or maybe begins. You walk without a plan, letting your feet guide you. Past fountains overflowing with laurel leaves from the latest forgotten festival, past walls still stained faintly from fire and cheese, past the statue of Minerva that now has a wreath of time around her neck. No one removes it. No one dares. You reach the edge of the city, where gardens give way to pasture, and pasture gives way to silence. There, under the bending trees, sits an old shepherd. He's carving a piece of wood, slow and steady. A small block of cheese rests on a cloth beside him. You sit without asking. He glances over but says nothing. Just keeps carving. After a while, he lifts the cloth. Found it in a jar. Hidden in a stone wall. Don't know who put it there. Could have been my father. Could have been someone else's. You look closer. The cheese is small, firm, wrapped in beeswax so old it's gone amber. It glows in the morning sun like a relic. Still good? You ask. He shrugs. Smells right. He cuts it with the tip of his knife. No ceremony. No hesitation. Just a thin slice, passed to you with fingers that know the land. You take it. You taste. And for a moment, just a moment, you feel it. Not the original. Not the storm of the forums or the chants of the monks or the Gothic fire curd. But something quieter. Older. A whisper from a time before anyone thought to chase flavor into madness. It's sharp. Gentle. Balanced. Imperfect. Real. He takes a bite too. Chews thoughtfully. Been a long time since anything tasted like that. You both sit in silence. The breeze carries the scent of warm hay and whetstone. He doesn't ask where you've been. You don't tell him what you've done. Neither of you need to. This is enough. The last bite. The final taste. A wheel that never made it to the market, never won a medal, never caused a riot. It simply existed. And somehow, that makes it sacred. You thank him. He nods. Keeps carving. You walk back toward the city as the sun rises higher, casting gold across tile and ash and vine. Rome breathes around you. Not as loud. Not as proud. But whole. For now. So now, as the last flavors fade and the city exhales, you ease back into your pillow, letting the weight of the story settle gently into your thoughts. No need to chase anything tonight. Let the scrolls sleep. Let the moon goat rest. You've walked the roads, crossed the borders, tasted the myth. You've seen how a single recipe, lost, misremembered, reimagined, could tip an empire into obsession. You felt the hunger that wasn't for food, but for belonging. And now, that hunger quiets. You're safe here. In this moment. Far from the panics and the proclamations. Far from the secret police and the burning vaults. Just you, and a memory that lingers like a warm breeze across a vineyard. Nothing more to prove. Nothing more to chase. Just a slow exhale and the soft settling of dust on old parchment. Let your mind wander now, through hills of wild thyme, under skies painted in the soft amber of dusk. Let the last echoes of rind and honey and silence carry you gently towards sleep. You've earned it. You've tasted the truth, not in the cheese, but in the stories it stirred. And those, no decree can erase. Not ever. Good night, traveler. Let go of the wheel. The flavor is yours now. Sweet dreams.